Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're not just telling a story, we're unraveling a legend, a core truth that many believe they know, yet often miss its most profound, tragic implications. Forget what you think you understand about betrayal. We're talking about a love so potent, so utterly destructive. It didn't just break hearts, it tore apart the very fabric of the greatest kingdom. We're talking about Lancelot and Guinevere, and the forbidden affair that didn't merely contribute to Camelot's downfall. It single-handedly ignited its funeral pyre. Prepare to witness how the purest ideals can be consumed by the most primal passions, how loyalty can curdle into a venomous obsession, and how a whispered secret can echo with the sound of a falling empire. Imagine, if you will, a kingdom bathed in perpetual sunlight, where chivalry was more than a code. It was the very air people breathed. Camelot, a bastion of justice, a beacon of hope, forged by the legendary King Arthur. He wasn't just a monarch, he was an idealist, a visionary who dreamt of a world free from strife, united under the banner of the Round Table. Each knight, a paragon of virtue, pledged to uphold righteousness, to protect the weak, to embody the purest form of heroism. They were a brotherhood, bound by honor and a shared purpose, their collective might forming an impenetrable shield against chaos. Arthur, with his wise counsel, his unwavering integrity, stood at the apex of this golden age, his queen, Guinevere, a radiant embodiment of grace and beauty, beside him. Her presence, a luminous counterpoint to Arthur's formidable strength, completed the picture of royal perfection. Together, they were the very soul of Camelot, an unbreakable alliance. This was a kingdom designed to last an eternity, built on the foundations of truth, loyalty, and unwavering moral fortitude. But eternity, as we know, is a fragile concept in the hands of mortals. Even in the brightest utopias, shadows lengthen. The seeds of destruction are rarely sown by an external enemy, by siege engines, or invading hordes. Often they are cultivated in the most intimate, most trusted corners of the heart, nurtured by a cocktail of human fallibility, desire, ambition, and a fatal susceptibility to temptation. Arthur's greatest strength was his trust, his unshakable belief in the goodness of men. He saw the best in everyone, even those who harbored secret darkness, and it was this very strength that, paradoxically, he trusted absolutely, loved without reservation, and in doing so left himself vulnerable to wounds that no physical armor could deflect into this perfect tapestry. A new thread was woven, Sir Lancelot of the Lake. His arrival wasn't a sudden storm, but a quiet ripple, destined to become a tsunami. Lancelot, his name echoed across lands, whispered in taverns and royal courts alike, synonymous with unmatched prowess, unwavering courage, and a knightly perfection that even surpassed Arthur's most seasoned warriors. He was the greatest knight the world had ever seen, a living legend before his time, his deeds sung by bards, his reputation forged in countless victorious battles. When he finally arrived in Camelot, a palpable hush fell over the court. He was everything the legends promised. Tall, noble, with eyes that held both the fire of battle and the depth of a poet's soul, a warrior's physique tempered by a scholar's grace. His movements were fluid, his gaze direct, his charisma undeniable. Arthur, ever keen to recognize greatness, welcomed him with open arms, seeing in Lancelot not just a formidable warrior, but a kindred spirit, a loyal friend, a worthy champion for his glorious kingdom, a jewel in the crown of the Round Table. Lancelot, in turn, was overwhelmed by Arthur's generosity, his vision, and the sheer moral weight of Camelot's ideals. He swore an oath of fealty, pledging his life, his sword, and his very soul to Arthur and his queen. An oath, he soon realized, that would demand an impossible sacrifice, a choice between honor and the heart's deepest, most dangerous craving. The first glance, that's all it took. Not a declaration, not a clandestine meeting, but a simple, fleeting moment across a crowded hall. Lancelot, newly arrived, presented to Guinevere, Queen of Camelot. She, in her royal splendor, greeted him with the customary grace of a queen. He, bowing low, offered the deference of a knight. Yet, in that instant, an unbidden spark ignited, a connection so profound it transcended mere courtly politeness. A silent, potent recognition passed between them, a shared destiny glimpsed in the briefest meeting of eyes. Guinevere, majestic and elegant, yet with a hidden vulnerability, a yearning for something beyond her gilded cage. Lancelot, formidable and stoic, yet his gaze held a yearning he hadn't known existed, a recognition of a missing piece. It wasn't love at first sight in the simple, romanticized. It was a fatal gravitational pull, a silent prophecy of doom, a whisper from fate, echoing in the hallowed halls, ignored by all save the two souls ensnared, and perhaps by the very stones of Camelot, which seemed to subtly shiver. The early days were a desperate dance of denial, a ferocious struggle against an invisible current that sought to pull them under. Lancelot, a man of profound honor, whose reputation was built upon his unwavering integrity, fought against the rising tide of his feelings. How could he betray his king? How could he betray Arthur, his friend, his benefactor, the man who had given him purpose, a seat at the most illustrious table in the world? The very thought was anathema, a stain on his soul. Guinevere, the queen, bound by sacred vows of marriage, and her duty to the crown, wrestled with a forbidden desire that gnawed at her composure, an exquisite torment. She loved Arthur. Truly his kindness, his vision, his unwavering goodness, but Lancelot ignited a different fire within her, a passionate blaze that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Every shared glance became every accidental touch, an electric shock that left them both breathless and trembling. They were two planets, pulled into an irresistible orbit, knowing collision meant mutual destruction, yet powerless to resist the cosmic force drawing them together. The air around them crackled with unspoken tension, a silent storm brewing beneath the surface of Camelot's serene Faraday, a tempest waiting for the opportune moment. Their proximity, dictated by court life and Arthur's trust, became both an exquisite torment and an irresistible temptation. Lancelot, as Arthur's champion, his most trusted knight, was often near the queen, serving her, protecting her, attending to her needs. These duties, initially a source of immense pride and a testament to his loyalty, transformed into an exquisite agony. Each conversation, ostensibly about court matters, about tournaments or royal decrees, became laced with subtext, with glances held a fraction of a second too long, with words carefully chosen to convey more than their literal meaning. Their eyes would meet across the grand hall, linger, then quickly avert, leaving behind a residue of longing and guilt. The affair didn't erupt in a sudden explosion of passion. It seeped into existence, a slow, insidious poison infiltrating the gilded walls of Arthur's dream, gaining strength with every shared secret. It started with whispered confessions in moonlit gardens, where the scent of night-blooming jasmine mingled with the intoxicating scent of forbidden desire. Secret letters penned with trembling hands passed through trusted confidantes, their contents veiled in allegory and code. Desperate stolen moments where their hands would brush, their eyes would meet, and the weight of their world, their duties, their vows, would momentarily vanish, replaced by the dizzying rush of pure, unadulterated yearning. But even these fleeting moments, these stolen breaths, were fraught. They lived in a palace teeming with eyes, ears, and tongues, a nest of ambition, loyalty, and insidious jealousy. A single misstep, a solitary indiscretion, could shatter not just their lives, but the very foundation of Camelot, dragging Arthur's noble dream into the mire. Yet the thrill of the forbidden, the overwhelming intensity of their connection, overshadowed. They were like moths to a flame, knowing the heat would consume them, yet unable to resist its alluring, mesmerizing glow. The whispers began, faint at first, like distant thunder on a clear day, easily dismissed as courtly gossip. But they grew louder, more insistent. Courtiers, ever observant, noticed the queen's heightened spirits when Lancelot was near, the subtle shift in Lancelot's demeanor in Guinevere's presence, a certain light in their eyes, a certain closeness in their posture. Seeds of suspicion once sown grew rapidly in the fertile ground of gossip, watered by envy and doubt, twisting the perception of two noble figures into something tainted, The affair blossomed in the shadows, a beautiful, deadly flower, its petals stained with guilt, and its fragrance a blend of ecstasy and impending doom. Lancelot, torn between his unshakable loyalty to Arthur, the king he admired beyond measure, and his all-consuming, desperate passion for Guinevere, found himself trapped in an impossible dilemma, a moral crucible. His honor, once his defining characteristic, the bedrock of his very being, became a gilded cage, trapping him between two irreconcilable forces. Guinevere, burdened by her queenly duties, her profound affection for Arthur, and her profound understanding of the consequences of her actions, wrestled with the searing guilt, the crushing shame, and the intoxicating, irresistible pull of Lancelot's fierce. They were two halves of a broken whole, finding solace and damnation in each other's arms. Their love was a private kingdom, a sanctuary from the harsh realities of their station, a refuge where they could momentarily shed the burdens of crown and oath. Yet it was also the greatest threat to the very world they inhabited. Each stolen kiss, each clandestine embrace, chipped away at the moral edifice of Camelot, subtly weakening its foundations, creating imperceptible cracks in its once impenetrable walls. Arthur, noble and trusting to a fault, remained tragically oblivious for a time. His mind was on grander visions, on unifying Britannia, on upholding the ideals of justice and chivalry. He was a king who genuinely believed in the inherent goodness of his people, especially his closest confidantes. He saw Lancelot as his staunchest ally, his most loyal friend, the embodiment of everything his Round Table stood for, a living example of the chivalric code. This blind faith, born of a pure heart, a king's unwavering optimism, made his eventual betrayal all the more devastating. The irony was excruciatingly cruel. The very man he elevated, the man he trusted implicitly, the jewel in his crown of knights, was also the unwitting instrument of his undoing. His queen, the very heart of his court, was simultaneously the heart of his kingdom's unraveling. But shadows cannot hide forever, especially not in a court filled with ambition, resentment, and there were those who watched, those who yearned to see Arthur's reign falter, those who resented Lancelot's unparalleled glory, his unblemished reputation, his favored position. Mordred, Arthur's illegitimate son, a viper nurtured in the bosom of Camelot, harbored a bitter, burning ambition for the throne, a festering resentment for his father. He was a master manipulator, a shadowy puppet master pulling strings of discontent. Agravain, Gawain's brother, fueled by a rigid, unyielding adherence to the letter of the law and a deep-seated, corrosive jealousy of Lancelot's fame and influence, began to gather evidence, to weave a meticulous web of treachery. He was spurred on by a self-righteous fury, convinced he was merely upholding the sanctity of Arthur's court. They were the silent architects of doom, using the lover's secret as a crowbar to pry open the growing cracks in Camelot's foundation, patiently waiting for the moment to strike and bring the entire edifice crashing down. The tension became palpable, a heavy cloak draped over the court. Prophecies of old spoke of a great king's fall, not by sword but by the heart, not by external invasion but by internal corruption. Warnings were whispered by seers, dismissed as old wives' tales, or interpreted in ways that conveniently overlooked the truth. But the signs were there for those who dared to look beyond the glittering facade. The unity of the Round Table, once absolute, a testament. Small arguments escalated into bitter disputes. Loyalties became questioned, and the very air of Camelot seemed to grow heavy with unspoken fears, with the premonition of an impending storm. The Golden Age was slowly, irrevocably tarnishing, not from an external assault, but from a cancer within, metastasizing with every stolen glance, every secret embrace. Lancelot and Guinevere knew this, felt the weight of their sin pressing down on them, knew the precipice they teetered upon. Yet the siren song of their passion was too strong to resist. Their love, a potent elixir of euphoria, was also a slow-acting poison, corrupting everything it touched, twisting beauty into tragedy. The trap was meticulously laid, a masterpiece of calculated malice. Agravain and Mordred, with a band of loyalists, their faces grim and determined, burst into Guinevere's chambers one fateful starless night. Finding Lancelot there, the lovers were caught, red-handed, in the very act of their forbidden affection. The suddenness of it, the brutal invasion of their private sanctuary, shattered their illicit paradise with the force of a thunderclap. The world, as they knew it, crashed down around them in an instant. Lancelot, ever the warrior, his instincts honed by countless battles, fought his way out, a whirlwind of steel and furious despair, cutting down several knights who stood in his path. Their deaths, though accidental in the heat of his escape, were a grave transgression, an unforgivable stain on his honor, and a direct blow to the Round Table itself. The secret was out. The unspoken truth, long lurking in the shadows, was now glaringly exposed for all of Camelot to see, tearing away the veil of illusion and revealing the raw, ugly reality beneath. The news spread like wildfire, a devastating conflagration that consumed the court, leaving only ashes of trust and loyalty. Arthur, upon hearing of the betrayal, was not merely hurt, not simply by the infidelity, but by the profound, soul-deep violation of trust. The man he called friend, his brother-in-arms, his champion, the queen he called wife, the light of his life, his partner in kingship, both had plunged a dagger into his heart, twisting it with every clandestine embrace. Every whispered vow, his kingdom, his dream, his very sense of self, crumbled. The ideals he had so painstakingly built, the chivalry he had championed, were now mocked by the very people closest to him, reducing his life's work to a cruel joke. Guinevere, as the queen, was condemned to burn at the stake for treason and adultery, a brutal, inescapable fate dictated by the kingdom's unforgiving laws. The weight of this judgment, sanctioned by his own court, pressed upon Arthur like a tombstone. Here the true tragedy unfolds, a cascade of noble intentions leading to catastrophic outcomes. Lancelot, having escaped to the safety of his own lands, could not bear to let his beloved face such a horrific end. His honor, though stained, still pulsed with a desperate loyalty to Guinevere. In a desperate, valiant, yet ultimately ruinous act, he returned to rescue her from the pyre. He fought through the assembled guards, a storm of righteous fury and despair, but this rescue came at a terrible, unforgivable cost. In the ensuing chaos, in his furious, blinded attempt to save Guinevere, Lancelot inadvertently killed several unarmed knights guarding the execution, including two of Gawain's beloved brothers, Gareth and Gaheris. This single act of desperate love, however justifiable in the eyes of the lovers, cemented the irreversible schism within Camelot, drawing lines in blood that could never be. Gawain, Arthur's most loyal knight, once Lancelot's dear friend, was utterly consumed by grief and a burning, unquenchable thirst for vengeance. He swore an oath, an unbreakable vow to kill Lancelot, igniting a bitter, personal feud that would tear the Round Table apart. Night by night, ideal by ideal, the bond of brotherhood, once unbreakable, now shattered beyond repair. The war that followed was not one of conquest against a foreign enemy, but of self-destruction, an internal hemorrhage that bled Camelot dry. Arthur, caught in an agonizing bind between his love for Guinevere, his profound grief over Lancelot's betrayal, his loyalty to Gawain, and his sacred duty to uphold, he pursued Lancelot to France, besieging his castles, driven by a sorrowful rage that gnawed at his very soul. The greatest king fighting his greatest knight over his queen. The irony was a bitter taste in the mouth of a dying era, a symphony of discord echoing across the land. While Arthur was away, embroiled in this tragic internecine conflict, battling the very man who had once been his closest companion, Mordred seized his moment. He usurped the throne, spreading insidious rumors of Arthur's death, declaring himself King of Britannia and attempting to force Guinevere to marry him, consolidating his illegitimate power. He was the vulture circling, waiting. This was the final, fatal blow delivered from within. Arthur, hearing of Mordred's audacious treachery, of his kingdom collapsing in his absence, was forced to abandon his pursuit of Lancelot and return to Britannia. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown, not against a foreign invader, but against the very forces born from within Camelot's own decay, a cancerous growth that had finally consumed a devastating, apocalyptic conflict where the flower of Arthur's knighthood, once united in purpose and valor, now fought against itself in a bloody, fratricidal frenzy, friend against friend, brother against brother, ideals against bitter, agonizing reality. The dream of Camelot dissolved into a nightmare of internecine slaughter. In that final, bloody confrontation, amidst the carnage and the cries of the dying, Arthur faced Mordred, his treacherous son, in a duel that embodied the tragic end of an era. Both were mortally wounded, their clash a desperate, dying gasp for a kingdom already in its death throes. The Round Table shattered, its knights scattered to the winds, its noble ideals trampled underfoot by the hooves of war and the weight of human folly. Camelot, once a shining city upon a hill, a beacon of hope, lay in ruins, its golden age irrevocably ended, swallowed by the tides of fate. Its destruction wasn't a sudden cataclysm, an act of God or a foreign invasion, but a slow, agonizing demise initiated by a love that could not be, a passion that burned too brightly, consuming everything in its path. What became of the protagonists of this heart-wrenching drama, the architects of Camelot's glory and its ultimate ruin? Arthur, the noble king, passed into legend, his final resting place shrouded in mystery, spirited away to Avalon, awaiting a possible return in Britannia's greatest hour of need, a promise of hope for a future generation. Guinevere, utterly consumed by guilt and repentance, her beauty faded by sorrow, retreated to a nunnery, living out her days in quiet penitence, forever haunted by the love that cost a kingdom. A queen stripped of her crown and her joy, and Lancelot, the peerless knight, once the epitome of chivalry, wandered as an outcast, his heart heavy with an unbearable sorrow, his unparalleled skills now useless in a world devoid of his king and his queen. He eventually found solace in a hermitage, seeking redemption, not in battle, but in prayer and solitude. For the choices that brought down an empire, a constant agony. Their story, at its core, is not just one of illicit romance, but of the profound eternal conflict between duty and desire, between sacred vows and the uncontrollable, overwhelming surge of human passion. It illustrates with stark clarity how even the grandest, most noble human endeavors, meticulously built on the highest ideals, can be brought to their knees by the intimate, powerful forces of the heart. Camelot fell not because of dragons or invading hordes, not because of supernatural curses or a lack of valiant knights. It fell because a king's trusted friend and his beloved queen succumbed to a love that defied all boundaries, shattering oaths, breaking trusts, and unleashing a chain reaction of betrayal, vengeance, and civil war that tore the land asunder. Their love was a beautiful, terrible force, powerful enough to inspire legends, to elevate heroes to mythical status, and potent enough to utterly destroy them, leaving behind a legacy of sorrow, a warning etched in the annals of time, that even the most perfect of dreams can be undone by the most human of failings, by a spark of passion that, once ignited, becomes an unquenchable, devastating fire. If you found this journey into forbidden love and royal ruin captivating, if the tragic echoes of Camelot's fall have resonated with you, do us a favor. Hit that like button to show your support. Share this video with fellow myth enthusiasts who appreciate a deep dive into legendary tales, and make sure you are subscribed to our channel for more explorations of the myths, legends, and forgotten histories that shaped our world. Your engagement fuels our quest to bring these ancient stories to life in a fresh, compelling way. That is all for today's video, a tale of love, loss, and the destruction of a dream. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.